Hello, everyone, and namaskar. Today's podcast is a continuation of the reading of the book titled Anandamurti, the Jamalpur Years. And this is a reading of the 31st chapter, titled In the Office. In the Office. Retreating to the jungle is not a way to obtain relief from the trials and worries of the world. There is yet another great advantage in living a worldly life. It provides one with the opportunity to serve humanity, an important aspect of intuitional practice. When Pulak Ray arrived for his first day of work at the Jamalpur Railway Workshop on May 12, 1964, the administrative officer in charge of his orientation, Vinay Ghosh, took him through the necessary paperwork and then gave him a brief tour of the facilities. Before bringing him to the accounts section, where he would be working, the officer gave Pulak one last piece of advice. The man under whom you are being posted is an extraordinary personality. You should consider yourself extremely fortunate to be able to work for such a man. However, you should watch your conduct and not engage in any kind of immoral activity. This man will not tolerate such things. After the officer had brought him to Baba's desk and introduced them, Baba asked Pulak to pull up a chair. He reached out and caught the tip of Pulak's right index finger. You have 4 brothers, Baba said. Deepak Ray, Alak Ray, Kirat Ray, Kanak Ray, and 1 sister, Reena Ray. Your mother's name is Srimati Geeta Ray. Baba smiled as a look of bewilderment spread over his new subordinate's face. Your sister-in-law's name is Purnima Ray, is it not? Yes, that's right, Pulak replied. She has fair complexion and is quite pretty. That's true. But let me say one thing. You don't get along with her very well, do you? How do you know that? Pulak exclaimed. You told me, Baba answered with a smile. But I've never spoken to you before, Pulak protested. This is the first time we've met. The thing is, you should be careful about her. Why? You see, women with her looks can be somewhat arrogant sometimes. In her case, she is especially so. You had best be careful. As the conversation continued, Baba began to tell Pulak about his forefathers and the village in East Pakistan from where they had emigrated. Each time Pulak asked him how he knew these things, Baba gave the same reply. You told me. Finally, Pulak asked him why he had caught his finger. No special reason, Baba said. Later that morning, while Baba was away from his desk, Shiva Shankar Mukherjee and several of his co-workers, all posted directly under Baba, pulled Pulak aside and said, We are not going to tell you anything about him. We will let you discover that for yourself. We will only tell you this much. He is a great vibhuti, a divine personality. He has no parallel in this world. The faith and reverence that Shiva Shankar and his co-workers felt for Baba had little or nothing to do with his growing reputation outside the Jamalpur workshop as a spiritual master, as would be the case with Pulak Ray, who soon joined their circle of admirers. They had fallen under the influence of Baba's personality and begun to seek out his guidance long before they became aware that their colleague in the accounts section was also known to the outside world as Shrii Shrii Anandamurti, the spiritual guru of Anandamarga. Baba himself did everything possible not to allow that reputation to enter the office. He guided those of his colleagues and subordinates who looked to him for guidance, but he did it in the role of colleague or friend or boss. Initiated disciples were under strict instructions not to act in any manner that might call attention to him while on the workshop premises. Still, it was inevitable that his colleagues became aware of his growing fame, no matter what precautions Baba adopted, and Pulak Ray was no exception. While he was still fairly new in the office, the young clerk noticed that mail was coming to Baba's desk, addressed to Anandamurti. He asked his supervisor about it. Prabhata, who is this Anandamurti? It's you, isn't it? No, Baba said. He is the guru of Anandamarga. He stays near Purulia. I go there from time to time to have his darshan. Pulak was not so easily duped. If the guru really stays near Purulia, then bring me a photo of him. Okay, I will bring one tomorrow. But the next day, Baba told Pulak that he had forgotten. For the next several days, he put his subordinate off with different excuses, until Pulak made it clear that he couldn't be fooled any longer. After that, whenever he asked Baba about being the guru, Baba just smiled and either changed the subject or ignored the question. The circle of Baba's non-Margi admirers in the office, to which Pulak now belonged, included Shiva Shankar Mukherjee, Vimal Chandra Mitra, N.C. Ganguly, Neelan Bose, Gokul, and a number of others. Most of them accepted Baba as their spiritual guide, even though they were not disciples in the formal sense or initiates of Anandamarga. Whenever they had any important decision in their life to make, they would seek Baba's counsel and follow his instructions. Since most of them were practicing Hindus, Baba guided them in their Hindu practices. He would always tell them that the spiritual path they chose was a personal matter, but that everyone should follow some spiritual ideal in his life. As a simple guide to leading a proper life, he used to tell them to remember the word Bhaviska, future. Ba, he explained, stands for Bhagavan God. Have faith in the Supreme Lord and attribute your existence and everything else to him. V stands for Vinay, modesty and kind-heartedness. One's actions should always be full of modesty and kindness toward all living beings. Sa stands for Samyam, self-control. One must always exercise self-control in every walk of life. Ca stands for Charitra, character. One's character should be stainless and of the highest order. If you keep these things in mind, you will overcome whatever problems you may face in your life, and you will grow spiritually. One day, Shiva Shankar, perhaps Baba's closest friend in the office, asked him for initiation into Anandamarga. For you it is not necessary, Baba said. You will get initiation elsewhere when the time is right. Shiva Shankar was disappointed, but he did not argue with Baba. Some years later, he would take initiation from the Ramakrishna mission, but he would always consider Baba his guru. As an old man, reflecting on Baba's answer to his request, he said that he believed that had he taken initiation, it would have changed the character of their friendship to a relationship of guru and disciple, something Baba evidently did not want. Indeed, Baba's relationship with his non-Margi friends and admirers in the office was quite different from his relationship with his disciples, and the Margis in the workshop made conscious efforts not to interfere in that relationship or to bring organizational matters to the office, except when Baba specifically called for it, such as his lunch hour dictations. By the mid-60s, Baba had developed a custom of giving a short talk for his colleagues when he entered the office at 10 o'clock. As soon as he took his seat, he would drink a glass of water and then begin. Typically, 30 to 40 persons would crowd into the space in front of his desk, a sort of natural cubicle formed by the large filing cabinets that bordered either side. Most of the participants were from Baba's section, but occasionally visitors came from other departments as well. They would listen for 45 minutes to an hour while Baba discoursed on diverse subjects, from spirituality to science, most often in Hindi, but at times in Bengali, English, Angika, or Bhojpuri. On a couple of occasions, he even began his talk in Sanskrit, until one of his colleagues complained that he couldn't understand him, whereupon Baba smiled and changed to Hindi. Once, one of the accountants in the office complained to a senior officer that Baba was doing something with the account staff each morning that was hampering the office work. When that officer went to Baba to question him about it, Baba told him that he was giving them moral instruction and philosophical lessons. Rather than hampering the work, such instruction was inspiring the workers to work with more dedication and helping them to increase their capacity and efficiency. The officer was satisfied with his explanation. On a later occasion, however, a Punjabi officer, R.M. Arora, was making his rounds when he noticed the empty chairs at a number of desks and the crowd gathered at Baba's cubicle. He came over and started scolding Baba for taking office time for non-office matters. If Baba wanted to talk about spirituality or such things, he should do it on his own time and outside the office premises. Baba's colleagues were offended by the outburst, but no one said anything. After they returned to their desks, Baba called Gunadhar Patra and asked him to convey some instructions to Aurora's orderly. But Prabhata, Gunadhar protested. Why should you have anything to do with him after he upbraided you over such a simple matter? You see, his son is sick. He will need my help. When the officer received the message, he rushed home, worried, and found that his son was vomiting blood. He called a doctor, but the treatment didn't help. Aurora became convinced that it was his own fault for having scolded Baba. That night, he sent a messenger to request Baba to come to his East Colony quarters. Baba did not go, but he sent some simple instructions with the messenger, along with assurances that the boy would be all right. Aurora followed his instructions, and the boy made a rapid recovery. The next day, Aurora came to the accounts office and apologized to Baba with folded hands for the injustice he had done him. He assured him that he was welcome to give talks for his colleagues whenever he saw fit. Though Baba used these talks to teach and guide his colleagues, he never hesitated to give them personal advice when they came to him with their problems or questions, or to call them aside when he felt that they were deviating from the proper path. One evening, a disturbance arose in Pulak Ray's boarding house. Pulak asked one of his roommates to vacate the premises and find another place to live because of the problems he was creating for the rest of the residents. A heated argument ensued that almost led to fisticuffs. When Baba arrived at the office the next morning, he drank his glass of water and gave his customary talk. As soon as the talk was over, he called Pulak aside and told him to sit down next to him. I told you to avoid quarreling, Baba said. Why did you quarrel yesterday evening in your boarding house? Pulak became flustered. He tried to explain, knowing Baba well enough by then not to bother asking how he had known about the quarrel. I am the boarding house in charge, he said. If somebody is creating problems, the matter comes to me. I voiced my objections, but he wouldn't listen. What was I supposed to do? Should I have just kept quiet? No. First you try to make him understand, calmly and rationally. If he still doesn't understand or doesn't listen, then make arrangements to remove him from the boarding house. But don't ever resort to physical violence. You must have control over your anger. Was I wrong to object then? I'm not saying that you were wrong. Hedi Kale Bazar. Kuta Boke Hazar. When the elephant walks through the market, the dogs come out and bark. But does the elephant care for it? But he'll never learn like this. Please, Prabhata, you talk to him. Make him understand. Baba agreed to his proposal. That evening after work, Pulak told the offender, P.K. Ghosh, that Prabhat Sarkar wanted to talk to him about the matter. So you want me to get scolded by Prabhata? P.K. replied. Forget it. When Pulak informed Baba of his reaction, Baba told him to tell the boy that he wouldn't scold him. Still, PK refused to come and talk to Baba. Thereafter, whenever he crossed paths with Baba in the workshop, he would avoid him and head the other way. If he needed to talk to Pulak about something, he would send his orderly to call him to his section. After that, he slowly rectified his behavior, and there were no more problems in the boarding house. It was the same way whenever we made any mistake. He would call us aside at the next available opportunity and make us understand that it was wrong to do such things. One evening I smoked a cigarette. The next morning, as soon as I reached the office, he called me over. He asked me, "Pulak, where were you last evening?" I told him that a football team had come from the Eastern Railway. We had played a match against them, and afterward there was a party. Then he said, "I am not asking about that. What was the need for you to smoke there?" I tried to hide it a little bit, but when he repeated the question, I admitted my mistake. He told me that smoking spoils the lungs and the liver. He said, "In the future, I don't want to hear that you have smoked or chewed pan, betel nut. This is my strict order to you." I never smoked again after that. Whenever I felt like smoking or chewing pan, I used to remember that I had given him my promise. I knew that he was always with me and that he was watching all my actions. Anytime I felt a desire to do something bad, I would get afraid. I knew that if I committed any mistake, I would get a scolding the next morning. That fear used to keep me from doing it. His graveness deterred one and all. He would point out even small mistakes. The next morning he would say, "You said such and such thing to such and such person. It was not proper on your part." If I tried to justify what I did in any way, he would ask me to sit near him and then make me understand why I was wrong. This happened every time I made a mistake, no matter if I was out with my friends or at home or in the office. Sometimes he would say that so-and-so was committing a certain mistake at that moment. Then he would say, "Make sure you never do such a thing." He used to admonish all of us in this way. Vimal Kumar, Gaur, Shiva Shankar, Ganesh Jha, Pakira, Vyomkesh Mitra, everyone who was close to him. But he never scolded us in the presence of others. He would always call us aside and talk to us separately. He would talk in a very low voice, so that those at the nearby desks could not overhear. One of the most remarkable things about him was the way he scolded us. The way he dealt with us was so attractive, and his manner so touching, that sometimes it would go on for an hour or more, and we would find it a very pleasant experience. If anyone interrupted, he would tell him to come back a little later. Even those whom he did not admonish for their mistakes would not dare to commit any wrong or indulge in indecent talks around him or anywhere in the vicinity. In the hall where our office was situated, people used to maintain silent respect whenever they were anywhere near Prabhata. Nobody would ever smoke when he was there or anywhere else where he was present. He seldom got up from his seat, except to attend nature's call. Even senior ranking officers would rarely call for him if they had any important matter to discuss. Usually they would come to him instead and seek his advice. No one ever behaved in any way that might attract his disapproval, but he always dealt with others with a smiling face. When the atmosphere was very serious, he would lighten the mood by telling humorous stories and making everyone laugh. One of the aspects of Baba's personality that fascinated his colleagues was the way knowledge seemed to pour forth from him in an inexhaustible stream, from subjects as diverse as philosophy or history to the intimate details of a person's life. Vimal Chandra Mitra had been a playmate of Baba's during his childhood. He drew close to him again as an adult when he joined the railway accounts office shortly after Baba did. From then onward, I felt hesitant to meet him because I felt I could very easily lose myself in him. My head would automatically bow before his profound, serene personality. If anyone asked him any question on any subject, he would answer it thoroughly, as if he were an authority on the subject. This amazed all his office colleagues. Often we would read the newspaper together. He would finish reading the entire newspaper while I was still reading the headlines. Then he would tell me the important news items, so that it would not be necessary for me to read them, or else he would direct me to read certain important items. Then, after a few days, he would ask me about them, but by then I had already forgotten. If you touch my toe, you will remember everything, he would tell me. I would touch his toe, and immediately all that forgotten information would reappear in my memory in a flash. I could retell it all verbatim. He explained once that all such phenomena were based on a definite theory, but I forget that theory now. While he was elucidating it, he also said that all people in the world are linked together. One time we started discussing a certain topic. The discussion ended, but some questions remained in my mind. When we were about to separate, Bubuda suddenly asked me if I still had some remaining doubts, some questions that had gone unanswered. We resumed our discussion, and he answered all my unspoken questions without my asking. Then he left. This happened innumerable times. On occasion, I would feel an urge to ask him about something that was on my mind, but I lacked the courage to approach him. He would come to me and ask me if there wasn't something I wanted to ask him. My colleagues and I all had the same experience. We saw that our thought waves were reflected on his mind, like a picture on a cinema screen. One Monday morning, Gokul asked him how he was able to know what was in everyone's mind. There is a certain technique, a certain science behind it, Baba said. But this science is not known to anyone. Baba explained to him how it worked, but his explanation was too subtle for Gokul to follow. Then Baba reached out and grabbed Gokul's finger. Now tell me, what were you doing yesterday afternoon in Mongir, wandering along the bank of the river? Normally Gokul spent his Sunday afternoons playing football, but that Sunday afternoon he had gone to the river instead of the football ground. When he asked Baba how he knew, Baba said, "It is as I explained. You told me." Baba's theory also accounted for his knowledge of future events. N.C. Ganguly, who used to love to talk philosophy with Baba, discussed communism with him on several occasions, and Baba never failed to comment how harmful the communist philosophy was for human society. One day in 1952, during the lunch break, he asked Baba about the future of communism. Prabhada, to what extent will communism be able to spread through the world? The communist philosophy is unrealistic. It goes against the human spirit. Before long, you will see this theory become completely irrelevant in society. Niren and several others were sitting there also. Niren asked Baba if they would see this with their own eyes. Yes, you shall see it in your lifetime. Toward the end of the century, you will see the Soviet Union break into pieces. But I shall see only the beginning of this process, not the end. Once, in the early 60s, Baba was talking with Gokul about the same subject. While he was explaining the defects of Russia's social theories, he said, "They are going in the wrong direction. Before long, communism will no longer exist there. I have written a social theory, and one day that theory will be adopted by the world, even in Russia. You see, those who do not follow Dharma can never be truly happy in this world. They may achieve everything else, economic success, name and fame, but without Dharma, they will never be satisfied. I have not passed a single day in my life without first completing my meditation before taking breakfast, at least 1 hour or 1.5 hours. Meditation is essential. One must remember God and try to think that God is everywhere." One day in late 1964, Baba called out from his desk to Vyomkesh Mitra, who worked in a different section of the accounts office, and asked him to come over. He had something he wanted to tell him. Listen, Vyomkesh, do you have a maternal uncle in the Andaman Nicobar Islands? Yes. Why do you ask? I want you to go and place a trunk call to see if he is okay. Vyomkesh immediately became worried. Prabhata, what is it? Has something happened to him? Don't waste any time. Go now, this very minute, and place the trunk call. Vyomkesh hurriedly informed his supervisor that he had a family emergency to attend to and rushed out of the office. As soon as he had left, Baba's staff members, including Pulak Ray, Taradas Ganguly, and Gokul, gathered round him to find out why he had asked Vyomkesh to place the call. His uncle is an officer there. Today he went to the beach with his family for a picnic. His wife went for a swim, but she was overcome by the current and was starting to drown. I could see him trying to save her, but while saving her, he was caught by the waves and pulled under. I sent Vyomkesh to place the call when I saw him being swallowed up by the waves. After he makes the call, we'll know if he survived or if he drowned. But I have a feeling he won't survive. What about his wife? They asked. She and the children are okay. Later in the day, Vyomkesh returned to the office in tears and told Baba that his uncle had suffered an accident at the beach and was feared drowned. He begged Baba to save his life. It is too late now, Baba said. Even his dead body won't be recovered. He consoled Vyomkesh for some time and then asked him to go home and be with his family. That day Baba would not eat the lunch he had brought with him in his tiffin box. He told his colleagues that after seeing the accident occur before his eyes, he was not in a mood to eat. Instead, he asked them to give his food to anyone who might want it. Later, news of Vyomkesh's uncle's death and the unsuccessful efforts to recover his body were published in the workshop newspaper, along with expressions of condolences. What was not published, but what was even bigger news in the accounts office, was the role that Baba had played in the drama by informing Vyomkesh about the incident as it was taking place more than 1,000 miles away. A similar incident occurred with Hamsi, another colleague from the accounts office. During a tea break in the canteen, Baba told him that his uncle in Karachi had met with a jeep accident and was dying. Hamsi did not believe him. My uncle is in Pakistan, and you are sitting here in Jamalpur. How can you possibly know if something has happened to him? Baba lowered his voice. Your uncle is dying. Prepare yourself and your family to receive the news. 3 days later, a telegram arrived for Hamsi with the news of his uncle's death. Many of Baba's office colleagues were awed by such happenings and spoke in hushed tones about Prabhat's great powers. But there were some who had quite the opposite reaction. When Rasamai joined the accounts office in 1947, for example, he was warned to avoid Baba because he was a tantric and would eat his brain. All of Baba's admirers heard such whisperings from time to time, but whenever they informed him about it, he would laugh and tell them not to pay any attention. Be like the lotus, he told them, where the water simply rolls off. The strict disciplinarian side of the tantric guru was also evident in his relationship with his colleagues. In 1964, about 230 employees worked in the accounts office. The majority of them knew that if there were any fault in their conduct, Baba would learn of it and take them to task. For this reason, it was rarely necessary for Baba to discipline anyone. The only time Pulak ever saw Baba severely scold someone in the office involved one of his fellow clerks, S.P. Pakira. One day Baba gave some official work to Pakira, but Pakira told him that he wouldn't be able to do it because he had to leave at 3 that day in order to catch a train to Calcutta. Baba's eyes began to blaze. Pakira, what did you say? Prabhada, it will be hard for me to complete this work. I have to leave the office early to prepare for my journey. Baba raised his voice, and a hush fell over the office. Pakira, beware. Do you know that in a moment you may be dead? You may die this very instant. You may cease to exist. Do you realize that? Pakira started to cry, shivering with fear. Pulak and several others crowded around Baba and begged him to cool down, afraid that something serious might happen to their colleague. Baba listened to their entreaties. In a stern tone of voice, he said, he should complete his assigned work, and only then should he leave. They turned to Pakira. Pakira, they said, you should never have refused Prabhata. You have to complete your work before you can think of leaving. Don't worry, we will help you with it. Pakira bent down and touched Baba's feet. Please accept my apology, Prabhata. I said it without thinking. I should never have refused to do the work. I am your younger brother. I won't leave this spot until you say that you forgive me. Pakira, until today no one has ever refused to obey any of my instructions. There has never been a reason for that to happen. I have never once given improper instructions. This was your job. I asked you to do it, and you refused. You could have come to me, told me you had to leave at 3, and asked for advice on how to complete the work. I would have managed it for you, but instead, you refused. I'm sorry, Prabhata. I realize my mistake. It will never happen again. Please forgive me. Baba forgave him, told him to see that it didn't happen again, and gave him his blessings. It was a lesson for everyone else as well. Thereafter, everyone in the office was careful never to show the slightest hint of insubordination or improper conduct of any kind in Baba's presence. Not that anyone would have dared do so before then. Fortunately, such incidents were rarely necessary. Despite Baba's strictness, they were all deeply aware of the great affection he held for them, an affection that shone through in his constant concern for their welfare, his exhortations for them to be ideal human beings, and in his subtle but ever-present sense of humor. One day, he called Pulak to his desk and said, Pulak, you are good at football, and you also exercise regularly. You must be quite strong. Let us arm wrestle and see if you can press my hand to the table. Pulak happily faced off with Baba and started to apply his youthful strength. But struggle as he might, he could not budge Baba's arm even a single centimeter. Press harder, Baba told him, but it was like trying to arm wrestle with a stone wall. Then Pulak asked Baba to try to pin him so he could see if he could hold him off. Baba smiled, and Pulak's arm slowly bent back until it was pinned to the table. Let me go, Prabhata. It hurts. What? Baba said, as he released him. You are as strong as a wrestler, and you can't take even this much? Prabhata, you must do a lot of exercise to be so strong, Pulak said, as he rubbed his hand and wrist. I do regular pranayama and asanas every morning and evening. It is the regular practice of pranayama that gives me so much energy. Pulak asked the names of the asanas he practiced. Among others, Baba named Sarvangasana, Mayurasana, and Matisendrasana. By the mid-60s, Baba's reputation in the office had grown to the point that it was not uncommon for railway officials from other cities to invent excuses to come and meet him, sometimes waiting patiently for hours for a chance to talk with Baba. Once an official from Bhagalpur came by the office while Baba was out and left a single rose on his desk. When Vimal Chandra asked Baba about it, Baba said, He is a clever man. He does not disclose his intention, but he cherishes a secret desire that one day Prabhat Babu will grant his prayers. Vimal Chandra also recalled periodic visits by intelligence officers from the central government deputed to gather information on Baba's activities. He described how some of them became so impressed by Baba's personality that they ended up taking initiation in Anandamarga. By 1965, Baba was often out of the office on sanctioned leave, sometimes for a few days, sometimes longer, as the activities of Anandamarga and the number of DMCs increased. Each time he took leave, he would inform his fellow workers where he was going, though he would never tell them the reason for his trip, and make whatever arrangements were necessary for the work in his section to continue smoothly while he was gone. When he came back, he would invariably bring small presents for his co-workers, often fruits or sweets typical of the regions he had visited, such as apples and raisins from Kashmir or a special type of cake from South India. Taradas Ganguly, fascinated by these exotic regions that he had never had a chance to see, would ask Baba about those places, and Baba would describe for him the culture and the people. On one of these occasions, Baba told him that he had toured all over India, and wherever he went, people were the same. They loved their life, and they loved their food. Before one of these leaves, when he was scheduled to be out of the office for 10 days, he called Vimal Kaur and Pulak and gave them detailed instructions for the time that he would be gone. When they asked him where he was going, Baba informed them that he was catching a train to Calcutta, and from there, a flight to somewhere else. Baba invited them to come to the station to see him off. When they went to the station, they were astonished to see the huge crowd that had gathered. An enormous crowd had come to see him off, with garlands and flowers, including many monks. We were really surprised. Seeing the crowd, we kept in the back. While we were standing there, two Avadutas came up to us and asked if we were Pulak Ray and Vimal Kaur. They told us that Baba had sent them to fetch us. We went to the compartment with them. It wasn't easy to get through the crowd. The people wouldn't make way, but Prabhada told them to let those boys through. He made us sit next to him. He said, "What type of young men are you that you couldn't get through the crowd? In life you have to fight to get anywhere. If you stand still, you won't achieve anything. It is only by struggle that you will gain something." He told us to work properly over the next 10 days in the office and not to do anything amiss. We asked for his blessings, and he put his hands on both our heads and blessed us. He said that after these 10 days, he would return and see how we had used our time. Baba had been sought after in the office since the 1940s for his counsel, partly due to his early renown as a palmist, and for his help in times of emergency when no other recourse would do. This would continue to be a part of his office life until the day he resigned. Once, one of Baba's office colleagues, Shankar Banerjee, was deeply disturbed by the plight of his brother, who was suffering from eczema. N.C. Ganguly advised him to bring his problem to Baba. When an opportune moment arose, Shankar approached Baba, who told him to bring his brother to the office when he got a chance. A few days later, he brought his brother to see Baba. Baba asked him about the history of his disease and what treatment he had received. Then he asked him to lift his shirt and show him the affected areas. Baba's colleagues gathered round to watch. As he passed his hand lightly over those areas, they saw with amazement that the eczema cleared up almost instantaneously. Those who were closest to Baba often found themselves thrust into the role of intermediary when one of their colleagues wished to request Baba's help. Shiva Shankar Mukherjee was the person people most often approached, and he himself was always advising people to talk to Baba if they had any problems. Once a friend of his, Tapan Chatterjee, was suffering from severe stomach problems. He had been to several doctors in Jamalpur, but their treatment had not given him much relief. Finally, Tapan and his friend, Sushil Ghosh, went to see a doctor in his hometown of Burdwan. While they were in Burdwan, Shiva Shankar approached Baba, explained the situation, and requested his help. Baba closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he said, "Shiva Shankar, your friend is suffering from intestinal tuberculosis. He will not survive long. Prabhata, please do something. Help him. He has a wife and children. If he dies, what will become of them?" Baba appeared unmoved. "His disease is too far gone," he said. "There is nothing I can do for him." In the meantime, the doctor in Burdwan made the same diagnosis. He told Tapan that his only hope was an operation, but he warned him that it was unlikely he would survive it. Tapan told him to schedule the operation. When they returned to Jamalpur, Shiva Shankar asked Sushil about their visit. Sushil told him that Tapan had an appointment with a surgeon for an operation, but he refused to disclose the nature of the disease. Shiva Shankar came straight to the point. "Sushil, I know that Tapan has intestinal tuberculosis. Prabhata told me while you were gone, and I know how far gone he is. We must ask Prabhata for his help. It is his only hope." Again, Shiva Shankar went to Baba to plead Tapan's case. "Look, Shiva Shankar," Baba said, "I know Tapan. He is a communist. He has no faith in me, so whatever help I give him won't bear any fruit." Shiva Shankar would not back down. After repeated requests, Baba finally acquiesced. He told Shiva Shankar to bring him a certain red flower. When he brought the flower, Baba touched it and handed it back to him. "Give it to Tapan's wife and tell her that a monk gave you the flower. Under no circumstances allow them to know it came from me. If Tapan hears my name, he will have an adverse reaction, and it won't work." Shiva Shankar brought the flower to Tapan's wife, and she tied it to Tapan's wrist. The operation was successful, and there was no reoccurrence of the disease. Neither Tapan nor his wife ever learned the identity of the monk who had given them the flower. In the early 60s, Shiva Shankar's nephew, Badal Chatterjee, was transferred from the Calcutta Railway offices to the Jamalpur workshop accounts section. When Badal first arrived, his uncle's close association with Baba annoyed him, but his attitude eventually underwent a drastic change. One Saturday morning, Badal came running to Shiva Shankar and told him that his son had been up all night crying. The boy had dreamed that his father had been in the hospital and had died. Shaken by the boy's story, Badal's wife asked him to go to his uncle and request him to ask Baba about the meaning of the dream. Badal was not happy with the idea. He was still uneasy about Baba's reputation and his uncle's unabashed devotion, but he did as his wife requested. On Monday morning, the two men approached Baba at his desk during the lunch hour. Shiva Shankar explained briefly the problem. Baba asked Badal to hold the little finger of his right hand, whereupon Baba started describing the boy. Then he asked Badal several questions. "Does the boy often rub his legs together? When he was an infant, did you used to put him on a cot during the day in Krishnagar with a photo of Vivekananda near his head? Did he used to stare at the photo? Was the boy's nickname Bile?" When Badal answered yes to all these questions, Baba said, "Whenever anybody touches the little finger of my right hand, I see the facts as if I were watching a movie. If they touch my right toe, I see them in the form of separate pictures. In his last life, your boy was the son of a Christian priest. He was at his father's bedside in the hospital when his father died. The boy later died at the age of 18 and took birth in your family. What he saw in the dream were images from his previous life that have crystallized in his subconscious mind. There is nothing to worry about. You and your wife will have no problems. The boy has good samskaras. Badal didn't know what to make of what Baba said, but he felt relieved nonetheless. And over time his colleagues noticed a remarkable change in him. His character improved considerably, and he soon became one of Baba's faithful admirers. When he was later transferred out of Jamalpur, a farewell party was organized for him in the office. One of his colleagues brought a beautiful garland for him, but when he was about to be garlanded, he refused to accept it. "I have already mentally offered this garland to Prabhata," he said, "so I cannot wear it in front of him." He then requested that the garland be offered to Baba, who accepted it and then handed it to Badal. "Keep this garland in your house," Baba said, "and treat it with respect. Whenever you go to work, look at it before you leave." Badal took the garland home and kept it in a box wrapped in a red silk cloth. In the coming years, he would look at it every day before leaving for work, and he would attribute his good fortune in life to Baba's blessing. Each of Baba's colleagues in the office had his own stories to tell, great or small, about instances when Baba had rescued him or his family and friends from their difficulties. One day, for instance, Taradas Ganguly came into the office feeling disturbed because a neighbor's servant was very sick and was expected to die at any time. When Baba saw the concerned expression on his face, he asked him what the matter was. After listening to Taradas, Baba handed him a 20 rupee note and told him to go to the pharmacy after work and purchase a certain medicine. Baba assured him the man would soon be cured, and such was the case. On another occasion, a workshop employee named Vinay Singh approached Vimal Chandra and requested him to ask Baba if he would read his palm. "I don't know palmistry," was Baba's brief reply when Vimal approached him. "Ask him to go see Vishwanath." Vishwanath was one of the people in the office to whom Baba had taught the science of palmistry. When Vishwanath saw Vinay's palm, he started chiding him. "Are you not ashamed to show your palm to me?" Then he sent him away. Vimal reported this to Baba, and Baba said, "All right, bring him to me tomorrow." When Vinay was brought before Baba, Baba told him that he had called him there because he wanted to disclose his crimes in front of everyone in the office so that he could then reap the consequences of those bad actions. Vinay was shocked by Baba's words. He pleaded for Baba's help, and over time, Baba helped him to reform his character. One of the most well-known stories, one always mentioned by his colleagues in the office, was the story of Lakshmikant Singh, the brother of Kamalapati Singh, one of the senior supervisors in the account section, and Sanjay Singh, who also worked in the same office. Lakshmikant worked in a different area of the workshop, but he knew who Baba was. At home, his brothers would often tell stories about their experiences with Baba in the office. One day, a local thug with a reputation as a smuggler and a black marketeer was found by the side of a lonely street, lying in a pool of blood. He was still alive when the police arrived on the scene, and before he died, he named Lakshmikant Singh as his assailant. On the strength of the dying man's accusation, Lakshmikant was arrested and prosecuted by the Manghir District Court for first-degree murder. Kamalapati was hesitant to bring the matter to Baba, so Gokul and Shiva Shankar went to talk to Baba on his behalf. They protested Lakshmikant's innocence and requested his help. Baba told them to fight the case and assured them that everything would turn out okay. The verdict, however, came back guilty, and the district court sentenced Lakshmikant to hang. When Baba's distraught colleagues informed him of the verdict, Baba said, I can see that he is destined to live a long life. He will not die. Tell them to file an appeal with the High Court. The case went to the High Court, but the High Court upheld the verdict and the sentence of death by hanging. This time, Kamalapati came personally to Baba, accompanied by his colleagues, and begged for his help. I said before that Lakshmikant is destined to live a long life, Baba told him. I know his future. He will not die. Now come with me. Baba took Kamalapati and Gokul over to the technical school. Along the way, he picked a flower from one of the flower beds lining the pathway. When they reached the technical school, he picked up a small copper ring from a workbench and made an amulet to which he fixed the flower. When he was done, he held the amulet in his hands, closed his eyes, and concentrated. Then he handed it to Kamalapati. Bring this to your brother and tell him to wear it on his body. Make it clear to him that he must not take it off until he has been freed. The next day, Gokul and Kamalapati caught a train for Bhagalpur and went to the central jail where Lakshmikant was interned, bringing with them the amulet. Kamalapati told his brother not to take it off under any circumstances, not even while bathing. When his brother asked why, Kamalapati said, Prabhata made this amulet. That means you are under his protection now. If you value your life, you won't take it off under any circumstances. Lakshmikant did not hesitate. If Prabhata sent this amulet, he told them, then you can rest assured that I won't take it off. Lakshmikant fixed the amulet to his upper left arm, and it would remain there long after the flower had faded and the copper had turned to black. When Kamalapati returned to the office the next day, he informed Baba that his brother was wearing the amulet. Baba asked him to sit down and wrote out some instructions on a piece of paper. Take this to your lawyers. Tell them to appeal the case to the Supreme Court. When they prepare their case, they will prepare to argue on the basis of these 5 points. Baba explained to him in detail the legal strategy he had outlined for the lawyers. Kamalapati took the paper to his advocates. They raised a few eyebrows, but agreed to follow the strategy Baba had proposed. After a few months, the case was argued before the Supreme Court. In a landmark verdict, the decision was overturned on the basis of a legal technicality pointed out by Baba. When Lakshmikant was freed and returned to work for the first time in nearly a year, Kamalapati, Shiva Shankar, and others welcomed him back and told him that before doing anything else, he had to go to the accounts office and pay his respects to Prabhata. You know you owe him your life, they reminded him. I know, Lakshmikant said, but I don't dare face him. He is like a lion. I don't dare look him in the eyes. It was at that moment that Shiva Shankar realized that Lakshmikant had indeed committed the crime. After repeated requests, they convinced Lakshmikant to go to Baba and thank him. When he did, Baba was very gracious. He blessed him and told him to be an ideal person from then on. Later, Baba explained in private that Lakshmikant was a good man at heart. The two men had gotten into an altercation, and he had stabbed his victim in self-defense. If he had not killed him, he would have been killed himself. Most of Baba's non-Margi followers and admirers in the office never thought to take initiation into Anandamarga, or, in a few cases, like that of Shiva Shankar, were discouraged by Baba from doing so. There were, however, a few exceptions. One young man from the accounts office used to go for a walk near the hills each evening and drink mineral water from the spring. Once, while returning home, he was startled to see an effulgent form gliding along some distance away. When he got closer, he was surprised to discover that it was Baba, out for his evening walk. Then in the office, something even more curious happened. At times, he would sit at his desk and chant Krishna's name under his breath. One day, he heard a soft voice asking him what he was doing. When he opened his eyes, he saw Krishna standing in front of him, smiling. Taken aback, he closed his eyes, still seeing Krishna's form in his mind. When he opened them again, he saw Baba standing in front of his desk. This happened more than once before he was transferred to Asansol. After his transfer, he met an acharya and took initiation into Anandamarga, never having forgotten his strange experiences with Baba from his days in the Jamalpur office. By and large, Baba's office colleagues knew little about Anandamarga, apart from the stories that circulated in Jamalpur, and, as time went on, what they read in the newspapers. Baba never talked about the organization with them, and when he met Margis in the office for some work, such as dictation, they were careful not to bother him. Though they didn't talk about it with Baba, they were justifiably proud of his accomplishments and the fact that people would come from all over India to see their colleague, and soon from all over the world. Those who had been with Baba in the office since the early 40s, such as N.C. Ganguly and Vimal Chandra Mitra, remembered that in those days, Baba would sometimes mention his aspirations to open schools, children's homes, hospitals, and other welfare projects for the poor and underprivileged. When they saw this come to pass during Baba's last years in the office and afterward, it gave them great satisfaction. Once Baba left the office, most of his colleagues continued to follow his career through the press and word of mouth. Many of them, such as Pulak Ray, Shiva Shankar, Kamalapati Singh, and Vimal Chandra, visited Baba on occasion and were always received graciously as a special guest, without any of the protocol that his Margi disciples had to pass through. Baba would chat with them about Jamalpur and ask how their mutual acquaintances were doing, renewing instantly the affectionate intimacy that he had shared with them in the office. That special relationship was what prompted Kamalapati to tell us proudly when we went to interview him at his house in 1999, "I know your Baba better than you. Thank you."